Good morning and welcome back to the Football Terrace. Three dilemmas, major dilemmas that Ollie Gunnar Solskjaer has to contend with, has to get right, has to fix after the international break. We're going to delve into all of them for you right about now, but a little bit of a schedule ahead of today. If you're a fan of the Football Terrace, if you're new to the Football Terrace, around 1 p.m. today, we are going to be hosting a Liverpool-Leicester preview. Man like Lee Chappie is going to be with us to go through that. And then at 5:30 this afternoon, we've ranked Chelsea, we've ranked Liverpool, we've ranked Arsenal. We're going to be ranking the Manchester United squad so far this season. So make sure you're tuning in. Make sure you're subscribed. Keep your eye out on the community page. More is going to be posted in relation to that over the course of the day. So keep yourself wide awake and aware of this. Hit that like button now, please. Really, really important that you get that done. Damn, are we early, Terry? I don't know, really. I set the stream up last night. It's 8 a.m. So it's fairly early, but it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. We're going to delve into this. Sky Plans will be opened shortly for you to phone up and come on and have your say and discuss these matters. By the way, big up my guy Troops. Watch your podcast this morning. Quality, funny stuff, and the levels, mate, of professionalism, camera quality, sound quality, absolutely amazing. So big up yourself and well done. United Unido here says 3 a.m. Damn, 3 a.m. where you are. 3 a.m. where you are. Kelvin here says Pogba comments. I don't really know what you're talking about. I don't really get what you mean. We spoke about that yesterday. It's debunked. It's fake. It's not real. So it's a really weird comment for you to come out with. But I'm not overtly surprised. People do say some weird stuff sometimes. They do. Sandra here says 3 a.m. for me, but can't miss a Football Terrace video. I appreciate that, bro. 3 a.m. Where are you at? It's 3 a.m. Where are you? It sounds like you're East Coast or something. Sounds like you're East Coast, somewhere along those lines. There we go. Let me know. Yes, East Coast, New York City. Very nice, my brother. Very nice. I want to go again. I went when I was a lot younger. I'd love to go again. Do me a big favor to everyone tuning in, whether you're watching now or you're watching the playback, please sign up to our mailing list and our newsletter. The link for that is in our description below. The first thing you come across is that get yourselves signed up or about now. Yusuf Mohammed, good morning to you. Shane O'Hare, our members are in the house this morning. You can become a member as well by clicking the join button right now for a little 99p. It's cheap as chips. It really is. So, Manchester United, 3 things they need to resolve after the international break. They are as followed. And I want your views and I want your opinions on this. This is more me talking and giving an opinion-based thing. First thing is formation. I think there's no harm in having multiple systems up your sleeve. But I think Ollie's got to a point now where he's got to settle. And whether that's 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, 4-4-2 diamond, 3-4-3, I think he needs to pick a formation that we're going to use in 90% of our matches now. And of course, you can make variations and changes to this. If you maybe away to Liverpool, or you're playing City or a big Champions League game, I think it's absolutely fine to change this up. But as a general rule, I think a fixed formation needs to be picked by Ollie. I know people don't like it, but personally, I would go with 4-2-3-1. I just think the players, as a general rule in most games, feel more comfortable with that. But I'd love your views and opinions on it. The next problem is Martial or Cavani, because Cavani is going to be knocking on that door to start. There's no doubt about it. Edison Cavani is going to be knocking on the door to start. He's a top-level striker. He scored against Everton. He's getting fitter every single week, and the pressure is going to mount upon Anthony Martial. We know the qualities of Martial. We know what he can do. 28% conversion rate last season. 28% conversion rate. The geezer is absolutely a phenomenal player, but having a bad start to this season. So what happens? How many more games can Martial draw a blank before the manager has to say, listen, I'm starting Cavani instead of you? And if he does do that, will Martial be moved into a wide position or will Martial start on the bench? And that's another part of the question. Would it be worthwhile moving Martial to the right-hand side and playing Cavani through the middle? I mean, it's certainly, I'd much prefer Martial on the right-hand side than Dan James coming back into this team or Jesse Lingard playing. Like, personally, that's my view. But I want to know what you think and feel on that one as well. A comment here says, Cavani is a legit world-class player, is what Mark thinks. Rain Productions says that he thinks Cavani should play against the low-block teams. Terry, do you not think it's a bit hypocritical of Marcus to call out the Mail and then do an exclusive with the Sun? I love Marcus, but I think he has made a mistake here. I didn't know he did do an exclusive with the Sun. I haven't seen that. Considering who Manchester United's sort of PR guru is, I wouldn't be overtly surprised, but I don't know. I can't. Oh, I can see the exclusive. Yeah. And who's exclusive with? I'm going to guess it's Hart. Yeah. I mean, chief features writer. I get where you're coming from. And I get people are going to have an opinion on that. We were talking about this just the other day, that I do think one mistake that a lot of footballers make is they get too involved with some of these tabloid newspapers. And I think they should be reaching out more to the alternative media, people like ourselves. But maybe they don't think we have a big enough reach and stuff like that. So that could be it. 1 sec. So I'm just reading something here. Wow, that's what I would. Sorry, I was just reading an article there. Greenwood back in the squad for the next game is a question being asked by Joshy here. Do you know what, Joshy? Hopefully he's in training. We've seen the pictures come out of Manchester United. He's in there and he's training, so hopefully he'll be there. Z says if Terrace plays, it will be good to see Cavani start, and that's a good point. 1 second, people. I'm cool. I'm stuck. I had a radiator on in here and it was getting a little bit hot. So I had to move it. So, I'm a one-man band and all that. Yeah, I mean, listen, there's so many reasons that and areas where I'd like to see it. The next dilemma is something we spoke about on Saturday, and that's Manchester United picking their best midfield. The Solskjaer needs to configure his midfield, something we haven't completely established so far this season. Bruno remains undroppable in that number 10 role, as far as I'm concerned. And the reason why Bruno is undroppable, before nobody should be undroppable. Until Bruno starts dropping disaster after disaster after the disaster, I don't want to hear about him being dropped, because you can go for a couple of games, and we saw that. It wasn't great against Istanbul. Wasn't great against Arsenal. And you think, okay, well, maybe there's an opportunity for Pogba in that role. But you've got to give him a few more games with the match-winning ability that he has. And then he does what he does against Everton. And you sit back and think, you can't drop him. And that's the thing with Bruno. I don't think we're going to ever see him drop more than 1 or 2 average to poor games in a row. And even in those average to poor games, he can come up with winners. He can be decisive. He can be clutch. He starts. And then you have to look at what we spoke about the other day. Fred and McTominay, when they play together in a double pivot, Man United wins 67% of games. That is over a reference body of work of 50 games, which is nearly an entire season. Across those 50 games, whenever we start a different combination or a different system, we only win half those football matches. Palpable. The majority of Ollie's win percentage as a football manager prior to using them two in the majority of his games was less than 40%. Since using those two, it's risen by over 20%. It's absolutely palpable. That leaves, of course, Nemanja Matic and Van der Beek and Paul Pogba scrambling for a position if he does that. And it's about getting it right. So far this season, so let's not go back too far in history, this season, every single time we haven't used a double pivot of Scott and Fred, we've either drawn, lost, and the one victory we had was Brighton away, where it took that last-minute penalty after the full-time whistle. So we haven't performed in one singular match in any competition outside the League Cup once this season without using them two in the double pivot. So I want your opinion. Do we continue to persevere, chop and change, and try and find a new system that clicks? Or do we just go to a system that has a 67% win ratio? They're the three questions to pose to you all this morning. Does Cavani start over Anthony Martial? If so, why? If not, why? Who would you pick to go into our midfield system? And what formation should Ollie be using? Skype lines are open. I want to hear from you right about now. Give us a call. Get yourself on. By the way, GNA TV, everybody go and subscribe. Brilliant contributor towards the football terrace. Says, at least Ollie has finally understood that Fred needs to start, and he is one of our most dedicated players. And do you know what? You're right about that dedicated bit. Absolutely dedicated to the nth degree. I'm personally really proud of what he's now doing in a Manchester United shirt. It's so important. You need players like that. Anish Joshi here, one of our members, says Van der Beek for McTominay with Fred. That's a combination I'd like to see. That's a great point there. In that double pivot, I'd like to see it. I'd like to see how that works. I'd like to see that as a combination. I don't think we've yet had it. I agree with you. I'd like that. Sanja Hussein here says, Fred is so good on the left-hand side of the double pivot, but replacing Pogba will be tough. Yeah, it will be. It will be, but that's what I would like to see. Get your super chat comments in as well, please, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, 1 p.m. today, Liverpool-Leicester preview. And 5:30 today, we're ranking the Manchester United team. So make sure you're hitting those like and them share buttons. Man like Mo is with us. What you saying, mate?
How you doing, bro? You all right, yeah?
Yeah, I'm very, very well indeed, my brother. What's on your mind?
I just want to talk about not Cavani, but what do you call how I've watched games here, not highlights, but the full matches here. I just want to know, how does Scott McTominay get ahead of Van der Beek? And do you know what I think that is? Yeah, I think that is like I'm not saying they're stealing a living, but everybody knows that Van der Beek is a better player. Now, what does he have to do to start? Like, what does Van der Beek have to do to start? Like, you see, Pogba, he knows what he's doing to Pogba. He's playing him on the bench because Pogba's having stinkers. Yeah, but what does he have to do to get a start? Like, this is what I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah, do you know what I think it is?
It gets on my nerves, and
I get that.
If this was another manager, I'll be getting onto his head for that. But Ollie, I'm about to switch on him for doing that. You see, I'm coming from. Like, I agree.
So listen. Look, I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I would say this. I don't think, although I would like to see a double pivot of those two to see how it works, I don't necessarily think Solskjaer sees Van der Beek as a deep line midfielder. I don't think that's where he wants to use him. The problem that you have is, I think Ollie wants to use him in the same position that Bruno Fernandes plays, and it's hard to oust him. Does that make sense? And I think for me, that would be the reason. Now, whether you agree with that reason or not is another thing. I don't think Ollie is leaving Van der Beek on the bench because he thinks technically McTominay is a better central midfield player than him. I think it's the same as nobody's calling for Bruno to be played in the double pivot, are they? And that's where I think Ollie's coming from. I think he's looking at Van der Beek. Van der Beek has more touches in the box than any other attacking midfield player in the world. I think that's where primarily Ollie wants to use him. Whether or not he's made a mistake not playing him more regularly in the deep line roles is another debate. In terms of Scott and Fred, when they start together in the double pivot, Man United win nearly 70% of their games. I can't help but look at it and think that's why Ollie doesn't want to break that partnership up, because whenever he uses them, we primarily win. So I don't look at it as stealing a living. Now, I don't think Scott McTominay is technically as good as any of our other midfielders we have in the first team. But it isn't about being the best. If I put a team sheet up now, play Team A versus Team B, you didn't know who any of the players were, but I told you Team A wins 67% of games and TB wins 50% of games. Which team are you picking?
So repeat that again, sorry.
So if I was to show you Team Sheet A, Team Sheet B, Team Sheet A wins 67% of their games. Team sheet B wins 50% of their games. You don't know any of the players' names on either team sheet. Which team are you picking, A or B?
The 1 year, so it's 61.
67%. Yeah. If I then revealed to you that one of the midfield players was Scott McTominay, would you change your mind?
I don't know, Terry. Man.
But maybe that's my point. That's my point. I think as football fans, we have to start looking deeper, and including myself in this. It's beyond the name. It's like Arsenal fans for years. Like, Xhaka shouldn't start. Well,
he still starts.
But do you win more games with him or without him? And against who? So you can't ever do these tests over a 3 or 4 game period, because I remember once the Sun did this article about how Liverpool have won more games in a particular season without Gerrard than with him. The problem with, in the 6 games that Gerrard missed, 4 of the matches were against relegation sort of battling teams, and the other 2 matches were in the League Cup. And I'm like, well, that's not a fair body, because they haven't played anybody in the top half, in the top 4 race, or any big European clubs. So it becomes an unfair game. When you look at what I'm talking about here of a 50-game period, including multiple massive games in Europe and in the Premier League, it gives you an idea. And of the big games that Scott McTominay and Fred have started in the double pivot, do you know Man United haven't lost one of them? Not one in 50 games. Whenever we play against any of the top teams, and they're using the double pivot. We lost against Arsenal. They weren't using the double pivot as an example. You go back to the FA Cup semi-final. They weren't used in that. Like you start going back to a lot of the games where Man United have beaten the big teams. Those 2 start in that double pivot. So for me, it goes beyond looking at what I don't mind if Scott comes out, but for Scott to come out of that double pivot, Ollie then has to find a system that's going to win. For me, at least 67% of our games. Otherwise, we're going backwards.
Yeah. But what I'm trying to say, Terry, is I'm just going to say this right now, but I don't think that's what you call Ollie's buy, because I think Ollie will always say that the players he buys, they start. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's basically the board's buy. I think one of them got to do with him not starting is that as well. Do you know what I mean? That a lot of people have saying the same thing that I'm saying the other day. That if Van der Beek was Ollie's buy, then he would have started.
And that could be true, and and I'm not going to overly deny that, because we know this board they are what they are. But if that's the case, then we shouldn't be angry about it, should we? We should be angry with the board for doing that. But I think it's more so with the fact that he wants to use Donny van der Beek in an attacking role, and that's it. Essentially, I don't think it's much deeper than that. Yeah, I'm looking now. So you've got to imagine this, right? So Manchester United beat Chelsea a number of times last year, and the two latter examples of beating them in the season. We beat them at the beginning of the season, then we beat them at Stamford Bridge, and then obviously we go into the game against them at Wembley, and we completely change the system and we lose. Like the majority of big games, looking at it here that we've lost, we haven't used Fred and Scott in that double pivot position, which I find very, very strange. And that's my whole point here. Until I don't care. I'm getting to a point now where I don't care about who starts and who doesn't. I'm looking at things from the point of view of what teams and formations win us the most games, because surely that has to be the most important element for any set of fans. Have you noticed that Chelsea fans have stopped moaning about Mason Mount being included in their starting lineup because they've started to win and not concede goals? Have you noticed? Did you get where I'm coming from? Like suddenly they don't really care about the lineup as much because they're winning games. The only time people start questioning things is when they're losing. So I'd look at it and go, okay, what Man United system wins the most amount of games is this one? But bro, I appreciate you coming on as ever, man. Like Mo, great points, great opinions as ever. Speak to you soon, my brother. Yusuf, try giving us a call back, my friend. Actually, do you know what I'll do, Yusuf? I'm going to call you back and get you on the air because you call a lot and I don't always get around to your calls. Shane here says, can't drop Fred or McTominay. We've got Yusuf on the line with us now. Yusuf, unmute yourself, brother. TGB, good morning to you. Yusuf, welcome back to the Football Terrace. What do you want to say, my friend?
Hey, what's up?
Yeah, I'm very
good. I just wanted to talk about a couple of points, especially McTominay. So McTominay is one of those players that everyone undervalues and everyone thinks he's rubbish. He doesn't know what he's doing. But if you actually watch him, he does what he's asked. And that's the most important thing of any player. He sticks to his position. He does what he's asked. He's always aggressive. And that's what we want as United fans. I don't care about the fancy passes. I just want the job to be done. That's the first and most important thing. So, like people saying Pogba should get over McTominay, Pogba needs to earn his spot back from McTominay. It sounds nuts, but it's true.
Yep.
Once Pogba starts doing his shift and start doing what he's asked to do, he can start. Otherwise, he shouldn't. Now, if you look at France, the last game they played against Portugal, Pogba played a very deep goal. It's crazy. Kante was playing in front of him, in front of Pogba. Can you imagine that? And no one said anything.
Yeah, and he did his job, and he was excellent. And Danny Devil in the Details called this out, and I've never seen Danny get so much stick on social media. But the point was, he called out an absolute perfect point that Pogba played a deep role, and he played it very, very well. He was disciplined. He worked hard. And I think some of it is Paul Pogba's determination when he's on the pitch. Like, that's what I mean. Like, I love Paul Pogba. And I do think the club has let him down over the last 5 years. But by the way we run the club, but not just him. I think we've let loads of players down, managers down, fans down. But there is also an element where I want to see Paul Pogba put a shift in. And he does let himself down at times. There is no doubt about it. Scott McTominay, playing in the same role as him in the double pivot, shouldn't be losing the ball 20 times less per game, attempting the same amount of forward passes, attempting the same amount of passes into the final third, have a better pass completion rate, and be creating more opportunities, plus beating him in defensive duels, in interceptions, and aerial duels. For me, when I look at all of that, I think Paul Pogba, with his technical ability, should be outstripping Scott McTominay in those kind of outputs and those kind of statistical areas. And the thing is, this season, he isn't doing that. So I completely concur with you. I want Pogba to start over McTominay. But what that means is, I don't care about your ability. It means you have to outperform Scott McTominay, and the team has to win more games with you in it than without you in it. It just has to happen.
Mm-hmm. Now, I just want to bring a point, because I disagree with one thing that you've said. I watched that France game live, then I rewatched it. I don't think Pogba was as good as people said he was. I think Pogba still has a massive fitness issue. You could see that he wasn't himself. It's very obvious that this isn't his level. Pogba with France wasn't good, in my opinion. So I think there's still a fitness issue that has to be addressed. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's fitness or if it's motivation, but I didn't rate him in the France game. I think at least 5-6 players were better than Pogba that game, and that isn't acceptable for a player like Pogba.
Yeah, I mean, listen, everyone's entitled to an opinion. I watched the France game. I thought he played well. I thought he did his job well. I thought he was productive in terms of what he did. And we also got to remember as well, it was such an interesting game because it was sorry, I'm just checking something at the same time. You've got that element of it being, Portugal versus France. They are two of the, I know a lot of people don't like to admit it, but Portugal are a really good team as well. And I thought it was a good performance from him. As I say, I didn't think it was a world-class performance. I didn't think it was the best Paul Pogba I've ever seen in my life, but I thought he did a good job in that deep-lying role, as it were. We've added Danny Williams to the line. Danny, of course, called out that Pogba was playing very, very deep on, I want to say it was Friday or Saturday. I think it might be Saturday in Portugal versus France. What's your views, mate?
Yeah, do you know, the reason why I pointed that out too is because I've literally heard Man United fans lie through their teeth about how he plays for France.
Yeah.
And it's just frustrating. Like, how can you lie and tell me he doesn't play a disciplined role? And they say, oh, but it's in a free. And I feel like, okay, it's in a free, yeah? All right. So if you're on the right-hand side of the free, the winger hasn't come back and it's you and the fullback defending on the right-hand side of the pitch, does the third man on the left-hand side of the midfield matter in that situation? No. In that situation, it's Pogba and the fullback. He has to defend. And for France, I see him do it. Furthermore, in a 4-2-3 run at the back end of last season, under Ollie, Paul Pogba played in a double pivot next to Matic, and we went on an excellent run of games. An excellent run of games. So when people say Paul Pogba can't play in that deep role, it's when we lose and he looks bad, they want to make excuses for him. That's all it is. And this is the thing, Terry, I don't pigeonhole Paul Pogba. I think he's versatile. This idea that he can only thrive in an advanced role, again, United fans will point to Ollie's interim period. Yeah, what about the games we lost when Pogba played in an advanced role? You don't count those games.
Yeah, that run after that where
he was crap. Let's be honest. He was excellent, then he was crap. But the excellent you look at and say he can play there. The crap, that's Ollie's problem. It's the manager's issue.
Yeah,
and that's what always happens with Pogba FC boys. It's there's no balance.
And I think you're right, Danny. Is that exact point? It's balance. There are times where, it can be where we lose a game and Paul Pogba has played well. But the problem is when Paul Pogba does drop a stinker, nobody wants to talk about it. And if you do talk about it, I get called bigoted for wanting to say that he's had a bad game, or people just get called Pogba haters and whatnot. And like I said earlier, like the purpose of this conversation today is talk about the 3 areas that I think Ollie needs to work on. And I think he needs to find a fixed formation. And when I say fixed formation, I mean that we primarily use. I don't like this chopping and changing every week. I think you adjust for particular opponents, like we did away at Paris Saint-Germain as an example. And I think we need that. The Cavani-Martial thing's a different debate, but we need to pick on a midfield pair now that that when fit, we know we're using in the vast majority of our games. And like I've said, I used to do rotors, right? When my first managerial jobs, I had to do rotors, and I found it really hard because everyone had a reason why they wanted Mondays off or Fridays off or Wednesday afternoons off, right? And I remember speaking to my area director, and I'm like, how do I do this and not annoy people? And she just gave me this advice. She went, don't think about any individual person when you're deciding the rota. We used to get statistics through that would show us when we're at our busiest point in the bank. So she was just basically saying, so at your busiest point is how many staff members you need. So basically, the first rota you do is how many numbers of staff do you need in at any one particular time, any one day. You do that first, and then you apply the names to it, and you just do it as objectively as possible with no emotion attached. Forget their personal needs and demands to an extent, because your first priority you're getting paid to do is to make sure that the bank you're running is operating to its highest degree. And I learned to do that, and it made doing the rotas easy. And if anyone complained, it was, sorry, I need you at this point. You are desperately needed on a Monday morning for the first 3 hours. I can, though, give you a Tuesday morning off because that's one of our least busiest times, as an example. Same here with team sheets. If you put Team A versus Team B, forget all the names. If Team A wins nearly 20% more football matches than Team B, it shouldn't matter whose name's on that team sheet. It should be, if you're a true Man United fan and all you care about is us winning, you pick the team that wins the most. By the way, if Scott and Fred maintain for another 50 games a winning percentage of 67% of matches when they start together for Man United, we can win the league. But I don't think people understand how high a win percentage 67% is. It will accumulate to you getting 980, mid 80 points. You can win the league with that, bruv. Like it's really good form.
And you know what people ignore? The reason why they have that win percentage is because they provide balance. That's what all the other teams that are better than us in midfield, that's what they have, is balance. We look at it on paper. We've got Bruno, we've got Pogba, we've got Van der Beek, yeah. But if you look at the teams who have balance in their midfield, Kante and Kovacic provide better balance. Rodri and Gundogan provide better balance. If you look at what Tottenham have, all these guys provide balance. Although I don't think Winks and Højbjerg are better than McTominay and Fred. But you get what I mean. There's balance there. And that's what you need in the midfield. If you can't anchor your midfield and let your more technically gifted players do what they need to do, you're going to get overrun. It doesn't.
I completely agree.
One other thing, very quickly.
Yeah, go on, mate.
Sorry, bro. Again, remember Paul Pogba at the back end of last season. Paul Pogba had a lot of 6 and 7 out of 10 performances, but nobody cared because we were winning, and not even the media went after him because Martial was doing well, Bruno was doing well, Greenwood was doing well. There were other talking points. Paul Pogba having a 6, 7 out of 10 performance in a role where you're supposed to be balanced is just fine. It's just these guys wanting to be superstars every week and just want to fit. That's why they're screaming Van der Beek to play. How do you drop Bruno? How do you drop Bruno for Van der Beek? You keep telling us what his outputs are, and people can't understand maybe why Ollie won't drop him for Van der Beek. But
it's not going to happen. And do you know what's interesting with the Van der Beek thing? This is where fans, because they don't like Ollie or they want to complain, get suckered in. And we've got Z and Hussein on the line. We're going to go to them just after I say this. Most people were calling Van der Beek backup when we signed him. That was his role. He was never going. No one thought he was going to start over Bruno. And the Pogba fanboy certainly didn't think he would start in midfield over Paul Pogba. And we know he's not I know you hate the phrase, but a CDM or a defensive midfielder. Nobody thought he was that player. So he was looked upon as backup. Now, in the games where we've won and won well, and we've won quite a few games well this season, no one's mentioned Van de Beek. Free him, get him out of jail. It's only when we lose. But the point being is, well, whose position is he going to play in? Because whenever we've played with Scott and Fred in the double pivot, they've not called for Van de Beek because we've played brilliantly and won the games, right? The only games where we haven't done it is where we've had your favorite personnel in that central midfield area, and we've had Bruno playing in the attacking role. And they actually think it's Bruno that the problem is. No, it's the lack of balance in the team. And I've said this, and this is where people have got to drop their hatred or their love for Paul Pogba and think about the club. And it's balance. Balance is it. Sir Alf Ramsey said this, and every football man worth his salt should understand it. You never pick your best player. This is where Patrice Evra's wrong. And do you know how I know Patrice Evra's wrong? Because Fergie did this, and we know Fergie did it, and he loves Fergie. You don't pick your best team. You don't pick your best players every week. You pick your best team. You pick the best balance. There's a reason that for whatever reason, there's a reason that Darren Fletcher's, Wes Brown's, John O'Shea's, Park Ji-sung's had such long and successful careers at Manchester United, and outside of us as a football club, did very little else because they applied the right kind of balance to the team as and when we needed them. We've got Hussein and Z on the line. We're going to go to Z first. We're going to keep everyone else on the call as well. Z, what you saying, bro?
I'm good, brother. How's it going? Yeah,
I'm good, my man. What do you want to say?
Yeah, you said 3 pointers in terms of Ollie, the dilemma. I would definitely say 1 pointer is the consistency in terms of the formation and the styles. He has to have consistency within the style of play he wants to do and the formation and the whole setup. I'd definitely say rotation's great. And I think one thing that's been avoided in terms of rotation is the simple fact that no one's noticed that Man United are in a better position than a lot of clubs. I think we're one of the few teams that have minimal injuries compared to the rest. If you look at if you look at Liverpool's injury list and Man City's injury list, it's way longer than United's. I think we've only got Shaw out, Bailly out.
Yeah,
but
Bailly's
we've
always
still
out.
got various people. We've still got various positions that can cover it. I'd like to see Ollie kind of be a bit more aggressive towards the media.
Z, we've lost you a little bit. Your microphone's gone a bit muted. Have you covered your microphone? Z.
Oh my God.
Z.
Yeah.
Bro, we've lost you.
I wanted to bring up Z's point as well. I think he's absolutely right. I think Ollie recognized at the beginning of the season that this season is going to be an injury crisis for every single team. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's fair in this season to criticize Ollie for the change in lineup. And one other main thing that you've mentioned is the formation. I think it's smart that he plays the diamond. The diamond actually gets the best out of our team. We have 4 strikers in Cavani, Rashford, Martial, and Greenwood. We have a load of midfielders. We don't have wingers. So I think it is the right decision to choose to use your depth and rest players by playing the diamond. So that's just my opinion. I think it's obvious that Ollie wants to play a 4-2-3-1.
Yeah.
But he isn't able to.
Can I challenge
that? He doesn't
Terry?
have 4 wingers.
Kush can challenge it, Danny. It's why you're on the... Kush can.
Yeah, just briefly. Do you know what it is? And I'm going to challenge it in this way. If Matic gets injured and Fred plays there and Fred can't perform there, if you're one of those fans who won't get on Ollie because you understand he doesn't actually have the best personnel for the defensive midfield role in the diamond, not so much the box-to-box role, the 10 or the strikers, we know we're strong there. Especially now we have tellers, it works because we actually got one good attacking fullback. But again, when we talk about balance, we don't have our only defensive midfielder is Matic, whose legs come and go. So if Matic is not in form, we already know Scott struggles there. He'll have to improve, and it's a difficult season to try to do that. To be honest, this is one season where managers and coaches are going to struggle to improve players if they don't have the time on the training field. That being said, as long as you're one of those fans that recognise, you know what, Ollie's right for going for the diamond, but we don't. If Matic isn't on it, Fred isn't great there. I understand why it doesn't work sometimes. I'm cool. It's when it doesn't work and people tell me it's because he's a shit coach and doesn't know what he's doing. That's the problem that I can't. That's why I don't get on board with the diamond overall. That's why I've said Ollie doesn't actually have one system he can stick to that's perfect. A few injuries, a few drop of form for a few players, and all of a sudden we're looking at another formation.
I hear that. We've got Hussein on the line that hasn't spoke yet. Hussein, what you saying, mate?
Yeah. I was just gonna ask, how are you doing, Terry?
I'm very well, buddy.
And yeah, so I wanted to connect back to what Danny just said, and he makes a good point. And also to connect back to Z, what he said, first off, with the Van de Beek situation, I think he makes a good point, though, that right now there's a bit of rotation going on, and it's very good. I think fans should be more happy than angry that the fact that Van de Beek and Bruno Fernandes right now are fit, because you look at other clubs and it's gone downhill for them. And second off, with the situation with the midfielders, I think this is an issue. I've been saying that if Pogba had to be replaced, then immediately get a defensive midfielder, someone that can play alongside Fred. I think when you have that double pivot that Ollie really insists on, I think Fred cannot play by himself in a single pivot. We've seen that, and it just doesn't work. As for Pogba, I think people like to say that he's very good. He's a lot better if you make him as an advanced 8, or just as a number 8 in general, which I think it is true. But I think in general, he just needs to be replaced anyway, because the way he's playing, his fitness and everything, it's just not fitting United. So I think right now, what Ollie needs to do in January is try to really look for a defensive midfielder. I think it's like Danny said, Matic is the only proper midfielder you have. But you look at this, he's getting older, he's getting slower. And you could tell by one thing, by what he did, was that he's focusing on club level by retiring from the Serbian national team, because he knows that if he's going to play a lot this season, then he's not up for it. He knows that if he's going to play for the Serbian national team and United, then he's done for. So
yeah. No, I totally understand that, and I think we do need to look at those positions. And with everything going on with Paul Pogba, if someone said to me now in January, if you sold Pogba, it means you could go and get Ndidi, I would probably say yes to it, because I don't think Paul Pogba's got any desire to stay at Man United beyond this contract. That's what I would look to go and do. It frees up.
Do you think, Terry, do you believe that's down to him or down to the false promises?
I think there's a combination of.
I think there's a combination.
Yeah, I don't think it's as polarized as his fanboys try and make out. Like none of it's on Pogba. I think Pogba's been here 5 years, and listen, we were blessed as Man United fans to predominantly have our star players stay here for a long time. But look at Cristiano Ronaldo. How many years did he do? Was it 6 seasons? Maybe less?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so he did 6 when we were amazing. So for Pogba to stay for 5 when we've been bang average, right, as a club, not just as Paul Pogba, as a club, it's not surprising. And, Pogba knows his next deal is his final deal, or his final major deal, because of his age. His next deal will be a 5-year deal, and wherever that is, that's going to take him into his early 30s, and that's it. So he needs to make the right decision for himself, and I'm not sort of angry with him for that. And if we were sort of knocking on the door of winning this league title, it'd be a little bit different. So he has to be selfish in his decision making, like everybody does in their career. Shane O'Hare here says with a super chat, Terry, I'm a chef in a hotel, and we need our best team in the kitchen at weekends for a smooth service. And that's absolutely right. I'll give you another work example. When I used to run a branch, right, I had this one cashier, right, and she was the best in the branch at talking to customers and getting them to book appointments to come in and switch their mortgages across to us, take out loans. She'd sell them things, right? And that was an important part of her business. But this cow son, I loved her, but she had no... I've had to say she had no in-game management, right? Because if the queue was out the door, she'd still spend a long time trying to sell things to people. And I was like, I'm trying to teach her at certain times, it's just serve next person, get the queue down. Don't let the queue get angry, because we didn't want our queue times going above 4 minutes. That was part of our service standard and promise. So you've got to get the balance right. You've got to know when to sell something to someone, or when just to serve them, thank them, move on to the next person. And she was great, but she could never get the balance right. And that's Man United sometimes. Like sometimes with Paul Pogba, it's like, listen, now isn't the right time for the little pirouette 5 yards outside your own box. It's get the ball down, one touch, pass it out into a flank. Quick, easy, efficient football, which you actually get sometimes from others. Do you know what I need from you right now? I just need you to chase around your counterpart in midfield and be dogged with him. That's what I need right now. I don't need the amazing technique and flair that you've got. This is what the team needs at this moment in time. And that's where the balance needs to be right as a collective. And you need to pick the best team for that. It's why when you look at the big games we've played in, I swear, I need to go and get the actual stats, but about 80% where Scott and Fred have started in the pivot in the last 12 months, we've won. And that's because those two as a collective nullify the opponent's midfield. Where when we play with our more flamboyant players, and when I say flamboyant, I'm not talking about haircuts and the clothing they wear, everyone relax. I'm talking about ability on the ball. We don't do as well. And we saw our team thrive like this for 20 odd years under Sir Alex Ferguson. We'd have these big games, and how many times did we see a name, Partey Sung, a Jasper Blomqvist? You know, how often did we see these players come in and do a dogged role? Like, I remember I starting Darren Gibson in games thinking, why? I remember him leaving Scholes on the bench and Gibson in the pitch. Yeah, because he wants...
Remember the one against Bayern Munich when we done the 3-2 when Robin scored the screamer?
Yeah, like if it weren't for the red card, that would have been a master. Like, Fergie couldn't help that. He couldn't help that Raphael got an inexplicable red card in a game. The irony that twice we were dropped out of the Champions League after playing so well against big teams because of inexplicable red cards, that one and Nannies. But it was working. And Darren Gibson, like on that one day, I remember Phil Jones before he became a laughing stock. Do you remember like when we played like that game when Nanny was sent off? What was Phil Jones doing a brilliant job of? He was like, Phil, you know what you're doing today? You're literally going to be Ronaldo's shadow. And up until the red card, Ronaldo did nothing in that game. That was peak Ronaldo, right? Nothing. And that's because Fergie knew that it wasn't always about going toe-for-toe 11v11. It was, right, I'm going to nullify this guy, do X, Y, and Z. You're going to manage this space. You're going to do something different. And that's where football fans have got to understand this. And, you know, we've seen it loads. We see it absolutely loads. It's why James Milner plays so regularly for Liverpool. Not because he's a good footballer, but it's because of the job that he does. And it's why Jordan Henderson, like I watched Jordan Henderson for England the other night. And I'm like, do you know what? If you'd never seen him play for Liverpool, you would say this guy's a West Brom player. Every time I see him play for England, I'm never impressed. I watch him play for Liverpool and I'm like, rah, because he got a specific role for Klopp that keeps the balance within his system. And for people not to recognize, and the people that don't recognize that are the same people that tell people like me that we have no football eye, we don't understand the game. And I'm like, nah, bruv, you think this is playground football where it's all about flair and skill? The greedy kid, the best kid on the ball. No, bruv. Most of them greedy kids you knew at school weren't very good in the school team, were they? Weren't very good in the Sunday League team. Or they never went on to make it.
I wouldn't pass to.
Yeah, exactly. There was a guy I went to school with. I'm not going to name him. I'm not going to name him in case he's watching, right? But I went to school with this guy, one of the most technically gifted football players I've ever seen. But man was so greedy. I'll tell you one thing he did once. His strike partner went through on goal, put it past the goalkeeper, going in, no issue, no defender there. He ran in and booted it over the line, right? He just wanted his name in lights, would never pass to anybody. He had opportunities at big clubs. 3 big clubs said no to him, even though he was a part of their books. And they literally all same feedback. Too greedy. And his brother, that was never considered as good technically, went on to play international football and played at a good level. And he was never at school considered as good technically. Why? But why did he make it? Because he listened and he learned, and he learned as he got older. It weren't about me and being greedy. It was about the overall team. But and I'm not saying Paul Pogba was greedy, by the way. I'm just pointing out a team is about balance, and without balance, you're done for. You're done for.
I just want to give an example of the type of players that we usually don't appreciate. Growing up, you had Sergio Busquets. I never used to hate him. I thought he was trash. I thought he couldn't play. He didn't add anything. But once you get more into football, you recognize how important those types of players are. Busquets doesn't have like the same flashiness even as like Casemiro. Casemiro pitches in with some goals. He's more aggressive. But Busquets controlled the game indirectly. He wouldn't give you the assist, but he would move the play. And the problem with United right now, we don't have a player that does that. We don't have a player that controls the tempo of the game. As much as I
think we do. I just don't think we have a system. I think we do. I just don't think we have a system. I think we've got some phenomenal players.
What system would you use for these players? What system best suits these players? I'm
what
curious.
system best suits this? I think we can play two systems: the 4-2-3-1 that Terry pointed out earlier, and the diamond. I think against you know the lower block teams, I think we should play the diamond, and against the 4-2-3-1s, I think that's what we should play against the big opposition. And I think
that's
just
fair.
needs to be drilled on.
I can see that, but again, as I'll say, I think it was Eustace that made the point as well about the diamond. As long as you don't blame Ollie if Matic doesn't have his legs, and we know Fred's not a single pivot player, you know he's problem solving when he does that. As long as you understand,
he just Matic in that position. That's the thing. What Ollie needs to do.
Who else can play there? You see, we talk about systems. You know, we spoke about this, in the group chat with other people. We talk about systems. Systems, with these managers, they're getting players that are perfect for their system. Klopp has 3 midfielders that are perfect. In fact, Klopp is now elevated. He now has a Fabinho who's more physically aggressive, and now he has a Thiago who's more technically adept. We don't. What you want to put perfect players in the system? You're saying play a diamond. We only have one real DM. Fred's not a DM. I'm sick of Man United saying this. He's not a DM.
The thing is, you can put Fred there. The reason why I disagree with a lot of people when they say Fred, because there's not someone that other than McTominay that actually I put Fred and McTominay ahead of Matic, in my opinion.
As a single pivot.
In terms
a single pivot.
But listen, if you have the right system, this is what I mean. In terms of someone that's going to chase down the ball, that's going to hunt down the player. Interceptions, you look at Fred's stats, it's amazing.
Okay, where does he intercept? Okay, let's add context to that, my bro. He intercepts when he's pressing high up the pitch.
Yeah, but that's the thing. If you've got, say for example, you've got a diamond,
when he's in a double pivot, okay, you don't have any evidence, zero, of Fred having the same interception and tackle success rate as a single pivot player. You don't have the evidence. But it's an idea. It's a thought.
I think
it may work.
No, I think you're looking at the fact of when United are being attacked, rather than if we have the right front three. Like for example, if you have a Van der Beek on the right or Pogba on the left and a Bruno, or you could even interchange that and you can switch them around because each and every one of those players can play in those 2 different positions amongst that diamond formation. If we're actually attacking and interchanging passes, then you can have Fred press high up. You understand that
as a single pivot player, you want Fred pressing high up the pitch.
I would give it a go.
That's what I mean. You'll give it a go, and then whose head's on the block? Whose head's on the trucking block? It's Ollie's. That's what frustrates me.
Yeah, and do you know what I say? There's nothing you said, Z, that I overtly disagree with. But this is the problem. You saw what happened with the diamond, right? We did play the diamond against RB Leipzig, and it worked quite well. And everybody was like, see, we should use it. We use it against Arsenal and we lost. And it was, Ollie don't know what he's doing. He's got no tactics. But the irony is he's literally used 3 different systems this year. And people say he has no tactics. It's the extremities people go to with the criticism that I know frustrates Danny. Because
Can we just point out, Terry,
it's the same that frustrates me.
In the single pivot against Leipzig and who played in the single pivot against Arsenal?
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point you make.
Yeah,
it was Matic against Leipzig, if I'm not mistaken, and it was Fred against Arsenal.
Exactly.
But you got to take into consideration that we had Van der Beek on the pitch as well.
No, bro. I'm not even like. I don't mean to go at you too hard. I'm just saying, recognize that Fred's not perfect for that role. He's not a DM in the mode of it.
I think he's downplayed because, for example, we could get one of those Liverpool midfielders to play a single pivot, or we can get one of the best, but not even he
doesn't do that though. No, but Klopp doesn't even do that. He's got certain players he uses for that role. And remember, they've got 3 workhorses. They don't accommodate any luxury players in there, so that's different.
Yeah, and look, we can try.
Too hard. I get why you have the idea. I'm just saying, recognize there are some issues. That's what I'm saying.
The thing is, guys, we can play. Sorry. We can play whatever system we want. The issue is unless it's But this is the irony in all of it. And this is where I just want to see balance from fans. And you all on this call are pretty balanced people. We have one system that works.
Yeah.
Because we've used it over 27 times now. And we've won 67% of the games. And that's a very high win percentage. And that is the 4-2-3-1 with Scott and Fred in a double pivot. That is a proven formation. By the way, we've played, of those 27 games that have played together, out of the last 50 matches, and we've won 67% of them, something like 11 of those games were against high-level opponents. So teams that you go, oh, it's going to be a tough game this week, or big teams, big European teams, right? So that system already works. It's the systems outside of that, the ones that we beg the manager to play, that we don't like. What I find strange is, and again, I didn't know we'd won so many of these games with Scott and Fred until I did the research on it. I don't understand why there's this necessity to change the system when we've already got one that wins us nearly 70% of our matches. That's all I care about.
I can tell you why, Terry. I'll tell you why he wants to change the system. Because he doesn't want to have to rely on playing Scott and Fred every single week. Because at some point they're going to get an injury and he needs to see something different. The problem is when you change the system, we do not have the depth to keep the balance. That is the major problem. So when Scott and Fred are in there, that's great, but you can't expect them to play every week. Fred can't play the single pivot. Scott can't play the single pivot. You can't ask Pogba to play deep. Because of the balance.
No, and I get that. So you need to manage it right. So I would look at it this way. When I look at our up and coming, this is where he needs to get. This is where Ollie does need to do something. So I look at Man United's up and coming fixtures. We don't need them against West Brom, or we shouldn't need them against West Brom. We should be able to play someone else in that role. Now, this is where it comes down to a personnel issue, because if every time we play Scott and Fred, we primarily win in that role, and every time we don't, we lose and drop points. That isn't a system issue; it's a personnel issue. Yeah. Because the system works with certain people and not with others. Now, this notion that the manager should be able to make his system work with anybody playing in any role is nonsense, because Man City are not as good when Aguero comes out and Gabriel Jesus goes in, but it's still Pep Guardiola. You know, Liverpool are not as good defense. Well, they have been actually since Van Dijk got injured, to be fair, because they've closed up shop a little bit. But when you lose your better players or your more balanced players, every team loses something when a player goes out injured in one way, shape, or form. But your system should still throughout. Now, some people say, Liverpool still keep winning. Liverpool still keep doing this. Yeah, maybe they do. They see it over a period of time, though. Looking at 5 or 6 games after Van Dijk's been injured, where they haven't played anybody of any real note, up until the City game, which, by the way, they didn't win, they've scraped a lot of games. So they see over, like I've said in this instance, this is over a 50-game period. Whenever that 27 times these two have been used together, 67% of those games have been won, and many of them have been big games. We beat Chelsea, we beat City, we beat Paris Saint-Germain. Like, we've beat some serious teams using these two in those roles. And if you just look at this season, all our best performances have come with those two in that role. That, for me, that says it. That is our system. That's what we stick to. It then comes down to other people stepping up when they're needed for rotation. But against the next 2 games, I think we do our best to rotate them as best we can. It's when we play Southampton, Paris, and Paris Saint-Germain that we need to look at it. Do you get where I'm coming from? Like, that's where them two are going to be needed. Sorry?
My question is, like, who can you rotate them with? Because those sort of games, I can see you can have Matic in the single pivot for that type of thing, and you can maybe play Pogba or Van der Beek further forward. That's great. But when we need to play the two, who does he play in there?
Well, Indiana, what have I said? There's not one formation he has where if you get injuries in the wrong position where he's not forced to change formation.
Yeah.
That's all I want people to understand. It doesn't give him an excuse. Yeah. He has to figure it out.
No, he does have to figure it out. But I think on top of that as well, this is also a ramification of 7-8 years of letting people build their own philosophies at your football club, and then you jump in ship, and you end up with this sort of cocktail that doesn't taste very good mixed together.
Terry, you know who we need right now? Sorry to interrupt you, bro.
Sorry, mate.
You know we should have sold, in hindsight, looking at it now, Schneiderlin, as crap as he was.
Yeah, like, do you know what it is?
I'm joking, obviously.
No, I get that, right? But do you know what's mad? If you look at players we have got rid of over the years, whenever a new manager's come in, you've been like, do you know what? Like, I always felt under Jose, like Javier Hernandez could have done a job. There were so many times in games where we just needed some little shit in the box to tap a ball in the back of the net, and he was needed. And I think at one point he actually came out and said he couldn't believe he was sold. Like, he at one point, like, Hernandez was like, for a big club, Hernandez was like a dream player, happy to be on the bench. He'd come in and get them tap-ins. I don't actually think he was that good when he went to other clubs and led the line, but I think he was good in that kind of United role that he had. But we've done that so many times. Like, I look at it now, and you sort of think we need width. You like, I know Memphis plays on the left, on the left hand side, but you think, we could do with someone on the right. You know, the way we play now, I actually think Angel Di Maria could be a good player for us in the position that he plays now. But he's almost like we brought the right players in, but for the wrong managers, if that makes sense. But there we go. Listen, everyone who's tuned.
Different periods didn't keep the balance again. So we bought them over a period of time. They were bought and sold. They were never bought together. It's not like we've dismantled a side.
Yeah, well, when you have no plan of action, these things happen. When you're pissing in the wind, it's just about trying to avoid your legs as opposed to anything else. Undombele season here, the super chat says you could have played Bruno, Van der Beek and Pogba as a free floating CMs if your fullbacks provided enough width, but they don't.
Yeah, I'm sure it works in FIFA really, really well.
He used the system at Spurs. Yeah, look, maybe, but we don't have the fullbacks for that, and that's the point. And that's not strictly Ollie's fault. You can look at AWB and say, well, he bought him, so that is on him. He didn't buy Luke Shaw. Let's see what happens with Alex Tellers if we finally get some game time out of him. It'll be interesting. But everyone who's tuned in this morning, thank you very, very much as always. Do me a big favor, hit the like and share. But remember, 1 p.m. Liverpool versus Leicester preview, 5:30 p.m. We're ranking the Manchester United squad. The last 2 shows on this have been absolute fire when we've done Liverpool and Chelsea. So we're going to be doing a big show again this evening. But until then, everybody, take care of yourselves. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you all again very, very soon. Bye-bye.